Get Right Band's been busy. We have, I guess, halfway through last year, we made a personnel change, got a new drummer, and we've had a keyboardist who for years has been playing with us, like started as just occasional, and then it got more and more and more and more, and now it's full time. So this year has really felt like kind of the first full year with the current lineup. You know, the first 6 months or so of having a new drummer was a lot of just learning him up on new songs and getting familiar with each other. He wasn't someone we knew well. So this year, I felt like we really hit the ground running, and we're able to make the band sound like what it sounds like with the new people in it, you know, as opposed to a continuation of a thing with previous people.
Right, yeah. I think I read that you and the bass player have been playing together since you were kids.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's cool.
Yeah, I think I was
crazy.
12 or 13 when we started playing.
That's cool. Did you guys grow up in North Carolina?
In Maryland.
Okay, yeah. That's awesome. So you guys have been playing together for like decades.
Decades.
That's cool. I have my guy that actually is going to be on the podcast next when I'm in Tennessee. We don't live in the same place anymore, but he was like, we were teenagers figuring out the Beatles, and like we figured out how to sing harmonies like badly together.
Totally.
We were like, whoa. Like,
yeah.
You know, you got to have somebody by your side.
Yeah. I remember Jesse calling me in maybe 9th grade. Must have been 10th grade because I was driving. And he said, you got to come over to my house. I gotta play you a song. And it was the Beatles, Happiness is a Warm Gun. And like, maybe I had heard it. My parents listened to the Beatles, so I'd probably heard it. We probably both heard it, but like we kind of rediscovered it together. And it's such a weird song. It's got these really distinct sections. The vocals are so cool, and it's kind of like vaguely sexual, but you don't really know what he's talking about. And it was really cool to have some of those formative musical experiences with someone that I'm still playing with.
Oh yeah, that one's crazy. That song's crazy. I'm obsessed with drumming now at this phase, so I've been playing along with Ringo because he's just so tasteful, and that one is just. I was playing along with that one recently, and even when it gets into the When I Hold You, like there's like some dropped beats. It's just mayhem. Yeah, it's like you cut up like 9 songs totally, and then instead of repeating any of those parts, you just like stitched them together in one long train of just.
Did you see the movie Across the Universe?
No, I never. Is that the musical with the Beatles song? Never saw that.
It's really cool. I love it. I mean, it's a tad cheesy in the way that every musical is cheesy. Like they bust out into song and dance for no reason. Yeah. But if you can get past that, it's stunningly good. And that song in particular is a really cool version. And all. You know, the story is nothing to do with the Beatles, so every song is reimagined in a different context that perfectly fits the story.
Oh, that's cool.
But isn't mostly, I think, what the Beatles meant. You know, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, the best. I think those songs are open to like. I could see how you could interpret them a lot of different. Like they're not that literal. Like the early stuff, I guess, is like I Want to Hold Your Hand, but then later on, it's like you could kind of make up your own story just with the like. I wonder if they started with the songs and they were like, all right, let's just. Yeah,
I'm not sure how they put it together.
Sounds like a fun project.
The coolest example I like to give is She's So Heavy. I guess it's actually called I Want You, which is a song that we are covering now and our new drummer Jazz sings.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, you know, that originally is a love song from John to Yoko about how she's such a heavy, powerful presence in his life and he wants her and he loves her. And in the movie, it takes place in the 60s, and a guy has just gotten drafted to go to Vietnam, and he shows up at the draft building, and there's the big like Uncle Sam I Want You poster, and Uncle Sam the poster comes to life and he's going, I want you. And then they go through basic training through the song and they get into Vietnam, and it hits the She's So Heavy, and the soldiers are carrying the Statue of Liberty into Vietnam, and like this is so powerful and cool.
Yeah, it goes from like jazz to metal, right?
It's pretty wild.
I think somebody has said that might be like the first metal song, or it's like arguably one of the first.
I can see that.
It's even got heavy in the title. Yeah, it's just like the 6/8, like do.
It's crazy fun. Yeah, it's crazy fun to play.
Yeah,
we just started playing it maybe I guess sometime this year, and it's one of those with the Beatles in general. I feel like when you learn their songs, they get so much cooler, even though they're already cool as hell as a listener. But then you learn it and you're like, damn, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Damn, you're playing this chord. Damn, Paul's playing this bass line against this guitar part, which makes no sense, but sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Like it's I love learning Beatles songs. It's so fun.
Totally. It is. It's like, because they don't feel like they're as complicated as they are. And that's the trick. They don't feel like math, but then you're trying to learn it and you're like, oh.
Yeah, they're way weirder than they sound.
Yeah, we played Two of Us a lot. Like, we played a bunch of Beatles songs growing up, but that was one where, like, I remember our bass player like got the bass line to that, and it was another just like a folk song in G, but then the bass player is playing this like almost a funk line, but it works. I think George plays the bass on that one. It's nice. Just I keep thinking I'm gonna like the Stones more. Like, as I get older, I'm kind of getting more into like sloppy stuff, you know?
Yeah, I just gave up on liking the Rolling Stones.
Really? Yeah. I mean, the Beatles, then I'll come back to the Beatles. I'll be like, there's really just no denying. Like,
they just don't do it for me. Like, there's so many bands, hugely popular bands that I have massive respect for, like the Allman Brothers and Frank Zappa and the Rolling Stones, where I appreciate it so much in every single way except actually liking it.
Yeah.
You know, like it just doesn't move me.
Yeah.
Even though it's objectively awesome. Like those are great bands.
Yeah. You get why people like it, but you don't want to put it on. Yeah.
It just doesn't hit me in my guts.
Yeah, I have those. Like, I've been trying to get into like Led Zeppelin, and I do really love the drumming. And I mean, there's some songs like Tangerine fucking destroys me, and there's a handful, but I'm like, I feel like if I spent a year really listening, if I listened to it enough, I would love it. But it's just like, who's got the time? It's like Bowie. I mean, it's like, there's just so much. I'm like, I love his hits, but like, I keep meaning to give a whole year to like listen to all of Bowie. Like, I'll usually like read the biography of somebody and then listen to all the albums. But it's like, I don't have that much time.
How do you feel about jams? Like improvised long
Oh, yeah.
jams.
Okay, this is a fun topic for me because I've always been Beatles songs, 3 minutes, great, like awesome chords, melodies, hooks. That's always been me, but it's just in the last 10 years, like getting into middle age, like getting into more psychedelic. I'm starting to get into jams. And now all I want is for people to come over to the shed and have long form. It could be atonal, it can be whatever. I love jams. Like,
okay, so then my recommendation for Zeppelin is as like a way in is some live stuff.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they are not heralded as a jam band, but their live stuff, I mean, they're playing 30-minute songs.
Right, okay.
And it's great.
So like, they don't do them like the record. They like go
not
off
at
on.
all. They go off on crazy stuff. Sometimes there will be a 15-minute drum solo in the middle of a song, and it's stunning. And yeah, I really like their live stuff, and I feel like their live stuff doesn't get talked about very much.
Yeah, I guess not. It's just the albums are... Yeah, the things that people are like, Led Zeppelin 3.
And the albums are... I love the albums too, but live is... I find it interesting, these bands that aren't... Like, the Get Right Band is often called a jam band, and we're often put on lineups with other jam bands and play at jam band festivals, and we sometimes discuss amongst ourselves the pros and cons of that. And if the definition of jam band is a band that has extended improvisational sections, then we are definitely a jam band. But I think there are also other connotations, especially these days, in terms of a certain type of goofiness, or maybe I'm gonna piss someone off here, but like a bit of like a lack of focus on songwriting and more of a focus on just the improv part. And in those ways, I don't think we fit that bill as much.
I think that's why I was so like, I was very like Fish, Grateful. Growing up, I was like, the kids that play that stuff just want to twiddle the whole time. So I think part of it was like, let's learn to write songs and then jam. And then, so I think that's part of my bias is I wanted you to still, which, Grateful Dead and Fish actually do have like a lot of fantastically written songs.
Dead especially.
But just the culture of it growing up in the South, it was like the jam band kids just wanted to like noodle.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's play some Beatles songs.
Yeah.
But now I've gotten into like just jamming. And this is actually like, this is a jam to me. This is like, I have jokes that I get up and do. And then this is like, we don't know where we'll be in 2 minutes. So it's
right.
This, and the same with jamming. Like as I'm getting older, I'm like kind of more like, get together with somebody and don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird I didn't get into that earlier. Like I kind of only appreciated that. And
yeah, I mean,
I was just so into songs, like
yeah,
hooks and melodies, and
I get it.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's still my favorite thing, but now there's just almost so much content to where I think spontaneous acts, like that's kind of why the Stones are like growing as a favorite for me, because like it's so human. Like it's you could make something on this laptop and have very little skills, but it could sound perfect.
Yeah.
Whereas like that Stones, like the pocket of everyone's like off a little, but then together it's like.
Yeah, you're like, I would have to get much worse at my instrument
to
play the Stones correctly.
Yeah, there's something about that like the humanity of it is like,
in
2024, I'm going like, the human sound is cool.
It really is. I do feel like I've been going the other direction for some time now, which I don't know if it's a good thing or not. But like, I have really noticed my ears are getting really dialed into perfection, and like it sounds weird to me to hear something sloppy.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something I already loved, like I already loved the Beatles, so that doesn't sound weird, but still I notice it now, and I didn't used to. I'll notice it and I'll be like, that French horn is straight up off key.
Yeah.
Like he is playing that poorly. But it still sounds great.
Yeah.
But like, I just never noticed those things until, years of recording in the digital age and being able to put everything to a grid. And that's a conversation we have a lot when we're making a record or a song, is like, how much do we do that?
Yeah, because the perfection dial is under your fingers now. So do you crank it all the way, or do you like... Yeah.
And it's different, I think, song to song. And there's songs, and in fact, this year we put out 3 different songs. We put out 3 singles, and they're all extremely different from each other, and really span the range of like tightly manicured pop to kind of loose live rock and roll. So
yeah, I think I listened to that, because the Christmas song, I would say, it sounds very like McCartney, or something that's like a very like. Like the minor 4 chord probably in there, and it's just like a very like composed one. But then there's like the 90s rock one.
The boy with the see-through skin.
Yeah, that's cool that you guys can like do the different genres. And I do think probably part of my love of loose is like, I don't know if laziness is the right word, but I've never been able to mix something with like 20 tracks for a month. I try to like record everything with like 8 tracks or less, or like the White Stripes and the Strokes first album sounded great to me, and they were just kind of bad sounding. So I think part of it is like my taste, but then part of it is also probably like knowing that I can't, like, people who can sit and make something sound perfect. I mean, that is amazing. Like, that is nuts.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's
all on the table now, so it really, I feel like it makes taste even more of a significant thing. Like, you ever listen to that podcast, Song Exploder?
Just a little bit, yeah.
There's, I forget, I feel like maybe you and I were talking about this once, but there's some funny, basically it's usually a pop artist, and they break down how they made a song.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to laugh a little bit at them, because they're manicuring every single thing. You hear them saying, I flew to Tokyo to work with this vocal producer, and they did this, and then there was this one synth that was the perfect sound, but we could only get it in Dallas, so we had to go to Dallas and get this guy who specializes in this thing, and then at the end of the episode they play the whole song, and I go, "Oops, you forgot to write a song."
Yeah.
Like this is just vapid nothing.
Yeah.
That sounds insanely cool. Like, you got the coolest sounding synth. Your vocals sound more processed and perfect and better performed than, anything, but like it's not a cool, to me, there's not like a hook or an emotional
it wouldn't pass
resonance.
the like acoustic guitar like the Beatles. It's like you had to play the song for the other three of them
totally
and get the thumbs up as a naked song. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's interesting. So do you guys mix, like, do you do it yourselves or do you like collaborate with people to mix and
we've
master the
done it kind
engineer?
of every which way. Like the first few, we started in 2011. We recorded our first EP in 2013. And so the first couple, we were pretty much not doing anything ourselves except for, we were performing, but other people were engineering it, recording it, mixing it. And we were self-producing. And then by the third album, we started to get a little more hands-on in the mixing process, really sitting there with the engineer, like talking them through it. And then Itchy Soul, which we put out in 2020, was the first one where we mixed it almost entirely ourselves. And we checked in with engineers a couple times through the process, sat down with like Julian Dreyer at Echo Mountain and listened through with him and said, what do you think about this? And he said, the kick drum's a little flabby in this EQ range and maybe try tightening this up and whatever. So we got feedback. And then the last couple albums and few singles we've been working with this guy Matt Zuttel in Charleston, South Carolina, and we've basically recorded everything ourselves, kind of half mixed it, and then sent it to him, and he takes the mix from 50% to 100% with some rounds of feedback. And that's been working really well. Like that, I think we'll probably, we'll always keep trying new stuff, but that feels like a good like path right now.
Yeah. I guess it's always changing. So, but prior to this band, you've been playing. Have you been playing with your bass player? Like, were there other bands before that?
Yeah, so before the Get Right band, he and I played together in a band called Soulgrass Rebellion in Asheville. Mm-hmm. And then before that, he and I didn't live in the same place. So we remained close friends, but after high school, we didn't live in the same place for, I don't know, I can't even think of the timeline now, but maybe 10 years or something. And then, that band I was playing in, Soulgrass Rebellion, we had to abruptly part ways with our bass player, and we had just done a tour of the Virgin Islands where Jesse, my current bass player and longtime friend, was living in the Virgin Islands. So he had just come to see us like something like 12 nights in a row. Like he had seen us over, like, because it's a tiny island, and he just like came out every night.
That's someone you should have in your band.
Right. So we were leaving for a tour, for like a 2-week tour, and we had to fire our bass player, and we called him up and we're like, hey, you don't know the songs, but you did hear them a lot. Can you come on tour with us in like a week? And he came, and then he and his girlfriend decided to move up here and join the band. And then that band sort of fell apart, but kind of shifted into the Get Right band.
Yeah, that's cool to have. I think something that when I look back on being in all the bands I was in, like having a personal connection. There's actually something I heard, like, I think I heard Anthony Kiedis say it on a podcast, like that, or maybe it was Flea. It was one of the Chili Peppers was saying that how much the room responds to a band is relational to how much energy is, or how much of a relationship the people on stage have together. Like right. If you have, like, when Emily and I play music together, it's like we have this intense connection. We hear each other's voices every day, so I feel like the tones just fit right. Whereas when I was younger, I tried to play with people a lot because I was like, oh, they're good, they know how to play, so we'll just make this work eventually. But it's really, I found that just having a connection with somebody, if you hear somebody's voice and you know their rhythm and timing, and you can talk with them, then even if they're not really that proficient on their instruments, something probably more interesting for an audience is going to come out of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
That's something like, so, growing up with somebody, for example, that's like a great person to play in a band with. If you've had a lot of fights and a lot of laughs and a lot of feelings and just like all that fucking shit with somebody, the music is just going to feel more rich. It's why people like the Beatles like come up together, and then you go solo and you get these like amazing artists, but there's just not that same magic, chemistry.
Yeah, for sure.
I wish I'd known that when I was younger. I only have really realized that in the last few years.
Yeah, I think too that makes it interesting when you're working with new people. Like, we brought in this drummer Jazz about a year and a half ago, and we knew him. Like, we had met, we knew each other's names, like we'd said hey around the music scene, but I don't think we'd ever had like a real conversation or anything. And we liked him so much musically right off the bat, and got a really good first impression of his personality, but you don't really know someone very well for months or years,
Yeah.
So it felt like the decision was a lot about the music, and then like crossing your fingers about the personality. And so that kind of thing is really scary. But in this case, like, it worked out so well, and we have developed like a really cool friendship, and it's cool how that does change things on stage, and how the offstage chemistry comes onto stage, and vice versa. You go through these cool experiences on stage, and you have a crazy improv one night, and that like feels like it tightens the offstage friendship too, because you've gone through these interesting highs and also lows together, of playing a crappy show and just being like, oh, that was brutal, that hurt,
we
but
drove
you have
all the way here for this.
But you have that bonding experience together.
Yeah, you're not just driving home alone.
For sure.
Like I do from a bad comedy gig in some other state. Like
I think comedy's got to be the hardest of all the art forms. Not necessarily in terms of making the art, but in terms of everything else. Like, it's just a tough thing to do at a not famous level.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like when it's going badly, it's far, far worse than any bad music gig.
For sure.
It's like, people are talking and not paying attention. But it's just the brutal silence, like 5 minutes can be, a whole career of music bombs can be like happen in just 5 minutes of comedy bombing. But yeah, I don't know. But it's easier in the way that like when I started having kids, geez, it's been like 13 years, like, I was still trying to do music, and it was like, hey, come see my band on Tuesday night at 9:30, and there's a cover, and it's like all my friends are having kids. It's like nobody's coming to see nobody's even in the room, and comedy over the last 10 years has been, there's a little more like, no, it's not like, we have a ticket with Ryan Cox's name on it. That never happens. People are like, there's stand-up comedy. That's hot right now.
Yeah.
So it's like you have the audiences. It's so much easier to get booked and do shows than have audiences, and you just walk in and you do it. You don't have to load in.
Yeah. Like there's some advantages for sure.
Yeah, but it's like, I'd say it is harder. But I'm working on this theory that they're the same thing. Like it's like if you go far enough, it's like you have your ideas and you're trying to read the room, hit the right tone, the right rhythm, get your ideas out with sounds and maybe movement, so that maybe when I'm old I'll have cracked like that stand-up comedy and music actually are the same thing. They're just like two different.
Do you ever combine them? Do you ever write funny songs?
I've done like a little of that, and I've done like I do one-liners with the guitar sometimes, but the line between like this is different and fun and this is like hack or like cheesy dad with the guitar, sometimes I'm halfway through that song and I'm like, I'm on the wrong side, and like you can't get out of it. So like I haven't figured that one out yet. I got to open up for Reggie Watts last year, which is like the biggest comedy show I've done because he has a giant audience, and he combined. Yeah, he did it in a way that I'm still going like, huh.
Yeah, he's also a little bit of like a freak of nature.
Yeah,
not
like,
to say that you aren't,
but he's a singular. Yeah, it's like you can't just
singular.
Be like, I'll just do what Reggie Watts does. But he definitely like embracing his freak of nature and finding a way that I'm still kind of like, what did he do up there? And I'm getting like texts from people like I grew up with, be like, Reggie Watts, he's amazing. I'm like, the fact that you can sell out the orange peel doing whatever the hell that is. I mean, that is maybe eventually I'll assimilate that experience, but I'm still just kind of reeling from it.
Yeah, it's always really fascinating to see something that you could almost describe as a new art form.
Right, exactly.
It's pretty rare. I think Reggie Watts does that.
Band.
I think the first time I really registered that when I was 15, my aunt and uncle in Boston took me to see Blue Man Group.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, damn, this is a new I mean, you could say it's a combination of a bunch of art forms, but I was like, this is so profoundly fresh.
Yeah.
Like this is just a completely different thing.
Yeah. Like every other show you've been to, you're like, oh, it's a band. I've got a group of bands I've seen. Oh, this is a comedian.
Or it's comedy, or it's a dancer, or I mean, they had visual art too. Like it was,
and they're packing it out. And so not only is it like weird. I mean, I know people that just do weird, crazy shit, but then you have this huge following.
It's widely accessible too.
Yeah. How?
Yeah. Well, I just saw another thing I could almost put in this category. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of it, so that's going to make this story a little less interesting.
That's all right.
But I went to the Orange Peel recently on the recommendation of a friend to see an improvised comedy musical. Are you familiar with this?
Mm-mm.
Gosh, I wish I knew what it was called. It's something like...
Sounds a little like Reggie Watts, honestly.
Yeah.
So
it was two people, and they got a couple suggestions from the audience, and then there was a live piano player and drummer. And they improvised a full musical, and the two singers, improvised melody and lyrics that rhymed and told a story, and was funny. And it was one of the most confusing things I've ever seen. Like I just didn't understand how it was happening.
Was it enjoyable? Like
it was incredible. It was. I mean, I would say my predominant reaction was just kind of shock. Like it was just truly hard. I'm sure there were tricks. I'm sure they have things they fall back on, like we all do.
Some muscle memory stuff
for sure. Or they know if they know at this point they're gonna go to this type of song or whatever. But it was pretty freaking incredible.
Yeah. I talked to Reggie after. I was like, "What is happening up there?" Afterwards, and he's like, "Well, I do have a framework. Like, I have these like blocks of like this topic, and I've done that and this one, and so there is. It's not like completely improvised, but it is still improvised. But I mean, even when you jam with your band, you guys probably after enough jams, you have some like things that are sort of not the same, but you know what I mean. Like
there's a framework, and often if that starts to happen, one of us will say after a couple months, like, "Hey, tonight on this song, forget the framework. I'm going off map. Like it's gotten a little too It's gotten a little too familiar. Like we know where we're going, and I'm going to take it somewhere radically different." So
does that ever be like, let's make a song out of that? Because we do keep kind of ka-chunk getting into that groove. Like
it's more often that it'll become part of the song that the jam is happening.
Okay,
like there are many, many times where our songs have evolved, past after the recording, they have evolved live to have different sections or something. That's very common for us.
Like a feedback loop.
But I don't know if I'm not sure if we've ever written a song out of an onstage jam, but we probably could. That's
been something that I have liked more and more, as I always like wrote the songs on guitar or piano and then tried to record them. And I noticed over the years, like it became more tedious. Like I have this song that I've written and I need to get it right. But then when I would just play drums, then play some bass, then just layer it and then sing on top of it, like, and not know what the next part's going to be, that just was always more enjoyable. And since I wasn't really like, not a lot of people were like listening to it anymore, I was like, well, I'm just going to start doing it more that way. And that kind of like led to more jams and stuff, like, which is, it's like, that's a comedy similarity too. Is like, I'm taping a special in 7 weeks and I just found that out. So I'm working really hard on like getting my act just right, like learning the beats and getting it, which I've never done as rigidly. And it's a little hard to feel as inspired by saying things that you know what they're going to be, you know what I mean? Like,
well, at that point, does the inspiration come from the reaction of the audience, do you think?
That's what I'm trying to get to. But then I also do like a lot of like shitty gigs, so it's like you're kind of you're like running it, but you're not getting that. But then you'll get a hot room, and you'll be like, all right, thank God these jokes do still work. But there's always that part where I feel like the best music and the best comedy that I do is like when it's good and I'm saying it for the first time. Like there's something about that, and then it's like. But then you also need to, like the Beatles or writing a perfect joke. Like it's also, there's this other side where like composing something perfect and executing it is awesome.
Yeah, I also heard Mark Maron say about comedy, and I found this to be true about music, that if he just has one truly fresh thing in the show, that makes him feel better about everything.
Right.
And I feel that way. So actually, after hearing him say that, we started doing a thing in most of our shows where I'll write the set list, and at one point in the set list, it'll just say someone's name. It'll just say Jesse. Mm-hmm. And that just means when we get to that song, Jesse's just going to start something.
Yeah.
And it's a true improv. It's not a jam in the context of a song. It's a true 100%, no idea what's going to happen. We don't know the key. We don't know the rhythm. We don't know anything about it. And it's going to be fully fresh. And I do love how that makes the rest of the set feel.
Yeah.
And that is always risky. Like sometimes that is incredible, and sometimes it's not.
And you need risk, though. I love that, because without the risk, I think the audience, there's a level of like we're releasing chemicals, where there's subconscious things in the room, and when the performers are a little scared or a little like we don't know what's going to happen, that creates an excitement on some level. And I think I could totally see that. Even if it's a train wreck, then you go back into a song you've rehearsed, and it feels a little more now and alive.
So I wonder if in like putting together a somewhat rigid set for your taping, there might be room to like know that at this moment it's not going to be rigid, even though everything before it and everything after it. Also, what's your editing ability? Like, can it be? Can the taping be edited? Can you cut out something of it?
It's going to be edited by it's a special. It's a dry bar. It's a clean comedy special. So it's kind of that's a whole thing. But so I thankfully I'm not going to be in charge of that. Thankfully or not thankfully, right. It's kind of like just putting your first thing out. It's my first like thing that it isn't me just on a camera. So there's 2 shows, so there could possibly be some editing, but I really like what you said. I think, I am kind of trying things like try to say something about the room. Like before you get started, here's the room. Hey, what's going on with this guy? Like something, this is now, even if it doesn't get a laugh, and then injecting a little more crowd work or in places, or if somebody interrupts you, there's the tendency to be like, wait, where was I? But it's like, no, forget what you're doing and go with that.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of similar to your, like, Jesse playing something where it's like embrace the now, because they know if you're saying memorize things at them, like you can feel them literally starting to shut down over like 10, 15, 20 minutes.
There's also, I think, a performance element to saying something rehearsed in a way that doesn't feel rehearsed. And I'll refer you to a spoken word poet named Reeves, Rives, and he is someone I saw on Def Poetry Jam on BET when I was in like 8th grade, and I was just like, this guy is the coolest guy. I love this guy. And I started, when YouTube came around, I found him on YouTube and I started watching all his poems, and he's got this way of delivering it where it really sounds like he's coming up with it on the spot. He'll stop and think, and it's all perfectly written. Like there's nothing improvised about it, but it feels so much. And I got to meet him years later and talk to him about that. And I was like, is any of it like off the cuff? And he's like, not at all. Even the pauses and thoughts are not off the cuff. Like that's all completely rehearsed, but I want it to feel like it's just coming to me through the spirit in that moment, and it's so effective if it's done, if you can find a way to do it that's like natural to whatever your vibe is,
Yeah, I mean, I guess like actors, right, eventually the play is done, but you have to get now you know what you're doing, but you still have to bring life. So that is kind of a challenge as a performance artist, and that's kind of why I've gotten more into jam. Like I know that. One of the reasons I like lo-fi music is because the demo I feel like that I would always sing it better on the demo because it was like I just wrote it. I'm so excited, and I've always found it so hard to get back to that feeling after doing it a bunch of times. That's like an elusive, kind of hard to put words on thing, you know. Like, are you able to like do that with your music? Like, you wrote a song 10 years ago, and you can bring it out and still like put it, like, do the Reeves thing?
Yeah, a lot of times it goes through like phases for me.
Got to give this one a rest. It's starting to feel a little like put it on the shelf for a year.
For sure. Or put it on the shelf, or do something. Like, hey guys, we got to try this song. Let's try it at a different tempo. Like, let's drop it back like 15 BPM and see if it's like what it's like in a more funky, soulful pocket. Or sometimes that happens like from having new players, like the new drummer and the keyboardist, where I go
different
like,
feel and
I was really tired of that song until you started playing it. And like the way you play it, not even to say anything is better or worse or whatever than a previous musician, but just like, oh, that brought some new life into it for me in a way where I can connect to the lyrics more. Or sometimes like I find new ways of connecting to the lyrics, you know, especially something that I wrote a long time ago, or if it's something particularly autobiographical of like a heartbreak moment that I, you know, was 14 years ago, and I can't even remember why I was so heartbroken about, you know what I mean? Like I can connect to a different type of heartbreak to get into that space, you know?
Yeah, that's what's cool about songs being a little more like, I think jokes feel a little more literal to me. And songs are like, you know, it's really, I think every song is kind of about the listener, and you put your own stuff on it. And that's, it's cool. You can go back to your own songs even and kind of like, now it's about this or.
Totally.
But yeah, this is actually helpful because I'm doing a show in Knoxville tonight where I'm going to run my set, and I'm like, I was trying to think of like mixing up the order, for example, or like making a promise to do crowd work or little tricks like that to kind of simulate having a different drummer on it, or simulate trying it. Let's try it as a slow soul song and 6/8 instead of a rock song. Or like the Beatles anthology was huge for me on that when that came out, and I was like, whoa, a good song can be in like any shape. Like I had no idea that they're doing like that rock song as a waltz, and you're like, whoa.
I guess recently in my YouTube algorithm, maybe in a lot of people's algorithm, Matt Rife started popping up constantly. And I don't know very much about him, but I mentioned his name to someone who was like, isn't he like really problematic? And I was like, I don't know. So I don't know what his deal is. I don't know if he's problematic.
Not to me, but a lot of people really hate Matt Rife.
In the algorithm, I have exclusively been shown his crowd work. I don't know if does he do like written normal stand-up?
He does, but he's like really known for crowd work.
His crowd work is very engaging. Mm-hmm. Like I found it like mesmerizing. Like I just kept flipping to the next one, and it did feel so fresh and relaxed and in the moment, and like and it was so good. I mean, he had really great moments and some really funny jokes, but there were also moments that weren't funny where it was still interesting. He's just like asking somebody about their life, and it's just it
doesn't have to be.
It feels risky and dangerous, and so that's the interesting part. And then 45 seconds in, he can also drop a good joke, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's a comedy. You know, it's like it's cool.
Yeah, it's weird that so many people are upset about. I guess like
what are people upset about?
Well, the people are upset that, and I don't even feel like I've experienced this, but that they go, well, always people see crowd work on the internet, and then they come to a comedy show, and then they think they can just interrupt the show, and it's going to be about them the whole time, and it's ruining the listening space for people to hear a well-crafted bit. And I just don't agree with that. I think crowd work is amazing. I love jazz, and I love the Beatles, you know, and to me, it's like podcasts are a little more like crowd work. Like there's just all these different things you can do with it, and there's room for all of it. I want to say Matt Rife's cheekbones probably are part of it. You know, I think people
he's a
are
good-looking
like,
boy.
Yeah, he's like too. Like people just, he's got one of those
too
faces,
handsome for comedy.
Doing the crowd work videos.
Yeah.
And just jealousy, like hating on people that that's something I think, and also another thing that's pushed me a little more into like jam, like just sensibilities, is that it's a more positive, accepting culture in a lot of ways. Whereas like I came out of the like hipstery, hatery 90s, and I'm still kind of unraveling all that. So when I see people hating on Matt Rife, I'm like, good for him. If you look at him, he's been doing comedy for over a decade. He's been working his ass off, doing shows all the time. Like, why are you so upset? He's not ruining your shitty show that you didn't bomb tonight because of Matt Rife, but it's almost like people are like, I did bomb because of Matt Rife.
Right.
Like,
weird.
Yeah.
So he's not saying like, he's not particularly offensive or anything. It's more that he's so known for the crowd work.
Yeah, I mean, not any more than like everyone. I mean, geez. I mean, all those same people, a lot of them would be like, and I love Kill Tony and all that they, I shouldn't say all that they do, but it's a lot of like just abortion, rape. Like every joke is about shocking stuff. So I think Matt Rife even is not doing that.
Yeah, the most offensive stuff I saw him say, and again, I'm not like very well versed in what he does, was exclusively being said to the person that it was potentially offensive about.
Yeah.
Which like in a non-hateful
they're
way,
laughing, right?
They're dying laughing. I mean, people in wheelchairs getting like roasted about being in wheelchairs, and they are, you know, they're at a Matt Rife show on purpose, and they are like looking joyful. You know what I mean? Like,
this is so healing. Like, this is this painful thing that I have to live with, and we're all laughing about it. It's cathartic. You know?
It seems cool, but again, I don't know. Maybe there's some weird stuff.
And the fact that they're at a Matt Rife show, I mean, that's a huge distinction, because like
yes.
The shows that I do and people on my level do, it's like,
for sure, yeah.
People are like, who is this again? You know, you're like, you're meeting me
Very
for the first time, like,
yep.
Which makes it like, I can't imagine walking out and they're like, it's him. We already like him.
Right.
It's like, oh man. So I mean, especially in that way. But
I remember hearing Robin Williams talk about how that basically ruined comedy for him. Like, he got so well loved,
couldn't trust the
that
laugh.
he would just walk out on stage and people would laugh, and he would be like, "This is fucking annoying. Like, I haven't made a joke yet. Like, let's do some actual comedy here."
Yeah, that is like one of the things that I think is a little more interesting about like this podcast and this level of comedy is it's like, it's not that. It's not like comedy. It's like you're doing like a stadium for people that just love you and they booked a hotel and they're paying hundreds of dollars. I mean, it kind of, I sort of like the shitty version of it. I mean, I kind of have to, because it's what I do.
You got to earn it.
But yeah, it's like just being in a place where no one, it feels more true to what it is. Like, as soon as you get to like a giant, like celebrity podcasts with comedy now, a lot of times they just talk about like their car collections and like their cold plunge tanks and stuff like that. And it feels a little like,
yeah, celebrities do love cold plunges.
They really do.
They're so into it. Yeah.
Austin, cold plunges.
Yeah.
Free speech.
I have had a little bit of experience on both sides. We're never playing a stadium, but sometimes we are playing a venue where there's 200 tickets sold of people who are there to see us and know our songs.
Oh, hell yeah.
And sometimes we are playing, you know, opening for someone or in another town where like no one knows us, and it's just 100% like, can we earn it? Can we win over their attention and hold their attention? And I do think there's really like pros and cons to both. And one of the cool things when you do have your own crowd is the way, like, I feel like we can really craft a show with dynamics and stuff. We don't have to be afraid of bringing dynamics way down,
right?
Or trying something spacey or trying something weird, because we know our crowd will go
like
with it.
You can do the ballad if it's like,
totally, yeah. Whereas, you know, we played the other night at Eulogy opening for a bigger band, and we played our new, you know, Christmas kind of mellow ballad, and a lot of people seemed to be enjoying it, but there was at least like 10 people in the front row just like drunkenly loudly talking to each other with no awareness that like the dynamics were quiet and sweet. And it's like, oh yeah, this is the crappy side of this.
I think that's
thing.
Cool. You know, I think that's like when you're on your deathbed, like the Russian novel version of your life, like that's like some of the best stuff. Is you're like singing your Christmas song that you like worked hard on, and there's like some loud, obnoxious people that don't give a fuck. Like that's the real shit, you know?
I think I felt that way maybe for the first decade of doing this.
Yeah.
And I feel it less at the end of the second decade.
And I don't really play out with music much anymore, so that might be like why comedy kind of is more like, it makes more sense to be like, oh, I bombed and we got heckled, and maybe that's me. Like that does kind of work a little better with comedy than with music.
Yeah, I think so.
Like bombing is like part of the...
It's part of it. It's a truly inevitable part of it. I mean, I guess it kind of is. I guess it is with music too, but yeah, it's a little harder to take it. Like if you're bombing and or getting heckled, do you address it? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to. I think if you don't address
music,
it,
I think that's harder.
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, you are kind of like in the song. So yeah, it's like I think that's one of the reasons like comedy's more empowering too. Is you just like you stop and you just deal with it.
Yeah,
and you kind of have to. Whereas like you're in the middle of a Christmas song. It's like it'd be weird to be like shut the fuck, you know?
Yeah, and
like,
also.
Whoa.
Yeah, comedy has a certain amount of like edginess and meanness that is very acceptable. Whereas if in between songs I was like, you know, I don't come down to the train station and tell you how to suck dick or whatever that classic response is. I can't remember, but you know, like I can't say that on stage. I mean, I can, but it would be weird.
I've had it go that wrong way in comedy a lot early on too, where you do go like, shut up, and then people go, whoa, this guy's mean. Like I'm not gonna laugh. Like you can definitely go too hard, and like I mean, it's like, oh yeah, Bill Burr did it. It's like, well, that's Bill Burr, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you get too scary, they have to really be making everybody feel unsafe to a level where you can really go off. So you kind of have to. You hope that the venue is, or someone is on the host or someone's on your side that can just remove that.
For sure.
But a lot of times at my level, that's not the case.
Same.
Yeah. Or occasionally it's even like the bartender is the one do it, like making the noise, and you're like, well, this is, I can't shit on the bartender.
Right.
Like, I guess we should, there's a lot of mayhem involved, but I don't know. I mean, the whole idea of like the shows where you have your audience and the shows where you don't, like, I think at this phase of life, a lot of what I've transitioned into is like building my artistic endeavors to where I never need an audience or anyone to enjoy it later, because I tried that for so long with music. And I was in a band called the If You Want Us in the 2000s, and we kind of like, we definitely had our like peak where we were like touring and playing the Orange Peel, but then it kind of was like time to do other stuff. And it was like, I really got real sad for a while because I wanted more of an audience or an attention, or I wanted to like get another peak higher than that. So I think after that and having kids and coming back to comedy like as a new art form is like, all right, like this is a fun conversation. I'm going to enjoy, listening to this, and I'll have it exploring my voice on stage in rooms that are not ideal is still like a good life's work. But I try to build it so I'm not like expecting that audience, because I do comedy with a lot of people in their 20s that are like, and hopefully in a few years I'll be out of here.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. I mean, maybe one or two of us will, but
most of us won't.
Yeah. So, but it's like still good. Like I think it's still worthwhile to pursue. So I'm trying to figure that out, or try to build it that way.
Yeah.
I've
been wrestling with that for a solid decade or so.
Yeah,
I'm doing better than I used to, but it's a hard one. It's a hard one to figure out.
Yeah, it really is, because it's like even bands that I loved, like the Lemonheads are my favorite band in the 90s, just great little pop songs, and they made it to this arc, and then now I can see them at the Grey Eagle again. Like they're back down where it's like these are the ones that are left. So I've even seen like my heroes kind of like you're not going to keep, there's going to be so it's like, how do you, if no one, like if people stop coming out to shows where it was your band, like would there be something that you want to perform with music, or do you need an audience? Like those are the kind of like the middle-aged questions that I think can be hard, but also if you can figure that out, I want to make art with people forever. So like, what is the path?
Yeah. I don't know.
That was a lot of my own but I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, same, for sure. And I think too, like for me, it's been partially figuring out what aspects of this line of work do I genuinely find joy in versus which aspects do I feel I have to do because I'm, going for a certain goal, and in terms of like making it a certain level of audience and listenership and income and opportunity. So for me, for example, like over the last couple of years, one of the big shifts has been I love writing songs, recording them, producing them, collaborating with other people to write and or arrange them. But I don't love the tedious back half of making an album where like you're a year and a half in and you're micro adjusting the mix and stuff. And the last album we made, which I'm very proud of and I'm very glad we made, it almost like killed me in terms of enjoying the creative process. And so since then, for a couple years now, we've only made singles, and that's allowed me time to start a couple side projects where I'm also just putting out singles, and I'm also doing some writing for film and TV and trying to like build that side of the business up, which is like real crank it out. Like we need a 30-second upbeat funk instrumental, and like I gotta crank it out in like a day and a half, and then it's just I'm done. Like, and that to me is joyful. Like that's so much fun.
That sounds like my feedback loop time. Like a year into an album and you're like EQing a hi-hat. Like
I used to enjoy that, but I don't anymore.
Yeah, I've always been too ADHD for that. Like getting it like the perfect like Radiohead, Pink Floyd, just like perfect. And
that's also a great, if you can afford it, where collaboration is lovely, because now, like I said, we can get it partway there, and then we hand it off to Matt Zuttel and say like,
take it home.
You mess with that hi-hat, and he will mess with that hi-hat, and he's great at it. And I think, we're paying him to do it, but I also think he enjoys it. Like I think he's a nerd on that level of engineering and mixing sound quality. And so I'd at this point I'd rather have someone do it who is gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds like it is. You're listening to like what excites you and how things are changing. Like I've noticed singles are just kind of more like the idea of, buying a CD in the 90s, bringing it home, listening to it all the way through. Yeah. Like the albums from that era where there was so little content. It's like, well, I've listened. I'll probably never listen to a new album again as much as those ones back then.
Sublime Self-Titled and Sublime 40 Ounces to Freedom.
Oh, yeah.
I just listened to them over and over and over again for years.
Those are great ones. I didn't get into Sublime till like more recently, but
when I was like
so good.
When I was 10, my older sister turned me on to them. My parents promptly forbade me from listening to them. Because I was 10.
Yeah.
And they're pretty damn raunchy.
Makes sense.
And so my older sister made a double-sided tape. On one side was 40 Ounces of Freedom. On the other side was Self-Titled. And she labeled it, I forget what it was, but I think it was like the Beatles or Bob Dylan or something. So I listened to that in my Walkman all day long. And my parents didn't know. It was the best.
Yeah, they're a band that's almost more, we were talking about comedy and like the mayhem and the mean, like I feel like they're kind of a band that probably is a little more like, it's a little more chaotic.
Oh yeah. Especially like, live.
Like I bet the energy was more like a comedy show or just, punk or just whatever. It just kind of, they probably weren't just like counting off the songs and executing them.
No, but I also think I think they tipped the other way. Like I've heard interviews with their manager where he said he regularly would go back to the soundboard and mute Bradley's guitar because he was so blasted on heroin that he couldn't even play.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, there's a sweet spot. Maybe.
That's why it's good that there wasn't everybody on their phones back then, like capturing all the.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting band. I kind of like through drumming in the last few years and just playing along with like reggae stuff kind of led me to them. I always, I could never deny like Santeria is like the perfect pop song.
It's great.
But I got more kind of deep into the mayhem. See, to me, that feels a little more like jam, whereas just like, I think when growing up, it was like, I want more chord changes and more like,
right.
But now I kind of get just like
the simplicity.
Yeah, the simplicity. And then the characters like singing as a character, who's like looting a town or you're becoming just some anarchist, insane storyteller. Like that's kind of something I didn't. It's weird. I look back on I think in the 90s I was like, I'm the alternative music. This is what I like. And then with each passing decade, it's like, it's all amazing. I just didn't understand it. Or,
for sure.
I was like tied to my identity to a certain limited view of music.
Yeah, I think me in the 90s, like me in high school, would hate most of the music that I listen to currently.
Yeah.
It's just, taste change.
And what about the other way? Do you like all the music that you liked in the 90s? Is it kind of interesting what holds up and what sounds dated?
I think I do pretty much like it all, but I don't necessarily I don't actively listen to most of it.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned that song we put out a few months ago that had kind of a 90s feel.
Yeah, Boy with the see-through skin.
And we made a music video for it where we leaned into that and we were all in grunge outfits and made like a whole 90s thing. So for about a month leading up to that, I exclusively listened to and watched music videos of Foo Fighters, Nirvana, and also like all the one-hit wonders like Marcy Playground and, I don't know.
Theirs is one of the best.
Yeah, it's great.
Sex and Candy is.
And it's all so good.
Yeah.
Like I love that music. I genuinely lump, like just weird, like there's so much good music from that era. It's such a specific, interesting time in music.
It was the last time before the internet and our phones ruined everything.
Yeah.
There's a thought. It's not mine, but I do like that thought. And I say it with just knowing that it's like kind of an old man, like things were better when I understood what they were. Like I'm starting to age out of the culture, but like my algorithm is all 90s.
Right.
Like it knows that I am just going through my what does it all mean. Like that's when we picked up guitars and started playing, is because we were like, a power chord, Nirvana. Yeah. We can sort of do this. And I still to this day like Dave Grohl's drumming is probably the drumming I play along with the most.
He's incredible.
I mean, it's just he gets the perfect, when you sing the songs, you sing the drum licks. Like it's like Ringo. Like he gets the exact, like he plays the song, not the instrument.
Yeah.
And the 90s are, and then a lot of it's kind of embarrassing, but I love it all. I don't know. We did a 90s karaoke band. I guess that was in the 2000s, and that we got together and played just all the hit, like Plush and just all the hits of the 90s. And it was so fun.
Nice.
Like just to play those songs, because like now we could actually do them. Like when we were in the 90s, we sucked.
Right.
So we couldn't actually, so it's like kind of satisfying to go back and like you can execute them a little better.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So what can I ask what year you graduated? Or
I graduated high school in 2003.
Okay. Yeah. I graduated in 97, so we're similar.
Yeah.
Shaped by the 90s.
And I had two older sisters.
Okay, so you got all that.
Yeah, I got a decent amount from them. And my parents too. I mean, not so much in terms of 90s rock, but like my parents turned me on to Pink Floyd and Dylan and the Grateful Dead and the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and
nice.
A lot of great music that I still love, which I also don't listen to a whole lot these days, but I still really love, except for Pink Floyd. They're kind of always in regular rotation.
It's kind of hard. I mean, where do you actually listen? Like, do you listen to, I find there's just so much media streaming around all the time to sit down and, on a road trip, obviously alone, I'll probably listen to some music, but even then I'll probably do a podcast or something now.
Yeah, I went through a phase for sure of like more so listening to podcasts, but for whatever reason, maybe around a year ago, I started finding, I still listen to podcasts, but I started finding maybe half the time I put on a podcast, especially if I have it like in earbuds or AirPods, that about 5 minutes in, I'm like, I need you to shut up. Like, stop. Why is there a voice inside my head talking right now? Weird. I got to switch to music because this is making me feel insane, even if what they're saying is totally interesting and cool. And then if I'm in a different mood, then that doesn't happen. But yeah, I've kind of gotten back into listening to more music.
Yeah, that's great. I do coding for work, so I listen to ambient instrumental music, like that my Wrapped was just like, wow.
Like lo-fi and chill hop and stuff
exactly.
like that.
That's kind of where it started. And it's like, and then I've kind of, my music has started to drift more into that. Whereas, because if I listen to like a voice singing a story, I can't focus on my work. I'm like laser focused brain. So it's like, it's weird how much that's like warped my and probably that's also got me more into jam and ambient stuff. Is like there's no hero's journey, ego story. It's just sounds and beats, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's kind of, it calms me.
Yes.
But I mean, do you struggle? One thing that I noticed too is I struggle with like not just listening to all the things that are old. You know, like there are a few people that I've discovered in the last 10 years that are new artists that I like. Like I like Mac DeMarco a lot. I like Goth Babe. And I'm almost like, yeah, okay. I am still like, I listen to Taylor Swift, which I like because I have a kid that's really into it. But I realized, man, like I could easily just never discover anyone current and just only listen to the Robert Johnson and just keep, going back to the Velvet Underground and all this stuff, Jimi Hendrix forever. And what do you think about that? Is it important to like listen to new stuff?
Well, I don't know if it's important. I mean, to circle back to one of the things we were talking about at the beginning, because my ear has been changing to like modern expectations. Yeah, I actually find that I listen to a lot of modern music because production and mixing has gotten like and just sounds has gotten so sophisticated and like so like ear candy, even just in like a regular kind of generic pop song like Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, I don't necessarily think she's generic, but just like a mainstream is what I mean. Like a mainstream pop song. Like a song like Espresso is just out of this world in terms of like the quality of production and the sound of everything, the tones, also the writing like is so manicured and sophisticated, the lyrics and the double entendres and the jokes and the humor of it, and
it's dense with
I'm a little bit like I'm a little bit calibrated to that now.
Yeah.
So I do find that I'm mostly listening to new music, even though if I go through a phase like listening to all that 90s stuff, I still really enjoy that, or bringing the Beatles back or Zeppelin back or whatever. For some reason, like I said, Pink Floyd kind of stays a little ever present to me. Like,
but it's pretty perfect. I mean,
it's like, they kind of exist outside of time or something.
They feel like they were perfect.
For a few albums, particularly.
Like Dark Side of the Moon seems like it's like 70s perfect, like perfect without a computer perfect. Oh my God.
I know. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it makes sense because you work in the industry and you're doing these things. So it kind of makes sense that you probably wouldn't want to be like, here's your song for your business, and it sounds like the White Stripes or the Velvet Underground, where it's like, unless they asked for that, it's like out of tune and the tempo's like slowing down.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a hiss, like tape hiss, like
it's all valuable. I mean, it's like some of this lo-fi stuff. It's like people are recording it with a $2,000 mic, and then they're turning a knob on a digital plug-in that makes it sound like warble tape hiss and stuff. Like I do that, and I don't know. It's just kind of like we're in the era of everything goes, anything goes.
That is definitely true, and I do love that about now too. Is that you can be like, here's my country album, here's my rap album. Like everything goes. It's just it's all mixed up. I'm being both ironic and sincere in the same song. Yeah. Whereas it seemed like there was two different bands for that.
Right.
For the 90s.
Yeah, and so in terms of how you break through in like making a career in that landscape, I just feel like it's a shit show. Yeah. Like I just don't know.
And it's like, changing like just
it's
so
just
faster.
Crazy.
It's just accelerating like
But in terms of the actual like making of the art, it's cool to have it be anything goes. It's cool to have that much power in a laptop at your house. Definitely. So I think I really think there's pros and cons.
Yeah, it's like it's amazing that you can do it all with like a minimal investment, and it can be anything. I hope you're not looking at my gain staging levels either. I just realized
this is embarrassing.
I was thinking that. I was like, it'll be all right, but feeling a little insecure about my levels.
Is it too hot?
No, it's perfect is what I meant. Why did I point that out?
I don't know. Now I'm looking at it. Do I need to talk louder? I might have just clipped it.
No, you're not. We're if anything, we're a little on the low side for that, just in case.
Okay.
But yeah, you can do anything. That's empowering. But then it's also like everybody can do anything. So everyone's like, here's my sandwiches from today. And you throw your freaking like. I had a bit about this and I never really got to work, but I liked it when in the 90s where, like I would make a CD with my band and I just hand it to someone and they'd be like, you made digital content. Like they're already like, I'm kind of already like winning this.
Yeah.
And they're going to go home and listen to it. It's like one of their few dozen CDs maybe. And it's like, there's not a lot of us out there. Like I made digital content, you know? And it's just my whole life. It's just like every day, a million more people are doing it. And I'm just like, man, like you shouldn't be allowed to film yourself doing stand-up and put it on the internet until you've been doing it for 5 years. Like, because now it's just an endless, like empty chairs, your first set. And it's the good stand-ups, like you can't find it anymore,
for sure.
So it's like, I'm kind of being petty. I'm kind of, part of the joke is that I'm a petty narcissist and I liked it when I got all the attention, so there's like levels to it, but it's also kind of true, like it's frustrating to see, like they made it too easy. We made it too easy for everyone to be able to make an album or a reel with captions. You know?
Every once in a while, someone will say something like that to me, like, oh, is your band on YouTube? Or like, are you guys on Spotify? And I'm like, there's no barrier to entry. Everyone can be on it. Like they just don't know yet that's not a thing. Yeah,
I remember getting like doing CD Baby or whatever, getting like in the, I forget what got me into the like Spotify things like 10 years ago first. And I remember that there was that moment where it was like, whoa,
we're on
next
Spotify.
To the Beatles. But then it's like that. Then you just, now everyone's there. Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's double-edged swords.
Most definitely.
It's like so empowering and amazing and depressing at the same time. It's just all the things.
I mean, that's the modern world. That's the modern world in general.
Yeah.
We're I think the social and technological evolution has, gotten away from us. It's outpaced our biological evolution by so much that we're in real trouble. There's a real we're really not physically equipped to deal with the world that we've made for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's a really exciting thing about comedy right now too is, yikes, I don't think that'll be picked up, is you can get up that night and you can speak to things without any preparation. And right now there's this there's kind of this war of like tradition versus like just the ever-changing ideas about what the culture is. And being 45 years old, I feel like I really understand both sides. Like I really do get the progressive, like it should be this now and we need to do better. But I also get that like we can't expect everyone to, some people have their traditions, I live in the country, I go to church, this is my town, and like I'm not ready to accept all these pronouns today. And it's like, well, maybe just let them do that there. Like that doesn't mean they're like hateful people.
Right.
So I think that a lot of it too is like as a culture, it's very, that's what I worry about the most, is just divisiveness because of the hyper accelerated changes in culture. And can we like stay together and work it out?
No. There's an answer to that question. The answer is no.
I mean, I got kids, so I got to be like, it's gonna be fine. The environment, divisiveness, it'll be great.
Yeah. Good luck. I wish the best for your kids.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah, I work with like weather scientist people. I work at NOAA doing web stuff. I'm always like how much longer do we have? Like my kids, can they have kids, or like what's the just what? How many years?
And do you get an answer?
No.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird world.
Yeah,
these days.
Yeah,
I guess it's always been a weird world.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like hundreds of years ago, I mean, chances are it would have been horrific and horrible in some other way too. So it's
and you can't. I think any conversation about like how messed up the world has gotten, which I think is very valid and important to think about in some ways, I think you also have to recognize massive caveats to that thought, such as, like equality. Like, by no means have we reached equality, but I don't think anyone could argue that we're doing a hell of a lot better now than we were 50 years ago or 100 years ago.
Right.
And so, and even environmental stuff, like, I think at least these ideas are getting out there. I mean, there's still a massive divide on what needs to be done and stuff, but yeah, I think there's ways in which we're making progress. Is that camera a problem?
Yeah, it just went off, so I don't know. We're at an hour 10. You want to just wrap it up there?
Sure.
Just the last minute or two will be audio. I just listen to them. I don't watch them, but I have gotten feedback from young people
that they like to watch them.
They like to watch them.
And I feel like we should do something like visually very exciting in this last section. Let's do the last section while doing jumping jacks, but we'll just pretend we're doing it.
Okay.
I'm exhausted. I'm stopping.
Cool. Well, Silas, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Ryan.
It's good talking to you.
Yeah, man.
I guess this won't be on camera, but we're fist bumping.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.